So basically, the important thing about demos is that you do them on a daily basis. So you want a relationship with the customer first. You need to start building rapport with the customer first and try to meet their needs. So if they come in with a repair, they come in for thread, needles, like just supplies, or they come in just for questions sometimes. Like sometimes they're not even buying anything, they're just coming with questions about stuff and you're helping them with their questions. You need to handle that stuff first in a really good manner, like be really professional, get them the information they want, and make sure you don't leave them hanging. Because if you can handle the basic stuff first, then you can ask them questions about them. And you can be like, hey, what's your passion about? Like, why do you like to sew so much? Like, what do you do with your sewing? You need to use qualifying questions. How long have you been sewing? What's your favorite thing to do with your machine now? Like what do you not like to do maybe? And gather information from them, because people that sew, especially people that have high-end machinery like Berninas, Baby Locks, Brothers, Genomis that have the nicer ones, they're going to tell you because they're passionate about it. They're going to tell you like, I'm making this quilt and look at this stuff, or I embroider these things and look at this, or I have a home-based business where I sew and I have these clients and stuff. And they're going to tell you the story, and you want their story basically first. So the most important thing is that you can handle the basic stuff and help them with their basic needs first, build rapport, and then do the demo, and then do a demo, because they're going to give you the time of day every time. Every single time they're going to give you the time of day, because in reality, the demos only take like 30 seconds sometimes, or 2 minutes. Your time to do the demo is actually like really low. It doesn't really take a lot of time to show these machines off and build interest. The main thing is that you get on the same page with them so they give you the time of day to get that 30 seconds or those 2 minutes or whatever. And the machine has to be prepared too. So your demo stations need to be set up. You need to be able to sit down and do the demo in the 30 seconds or in the 2 minutes to build the interest like right away, or you're gonna squash your opportunity. Because a lot of these opportunities, the majority of machine sales in the store happen on impulse. You may have to touch the customer a few times after you build interest, but a lot of those buys are happening on impulse. They didn't come into the store asking to buy machinery. The shoppers happen too, that does happen, but the majority of your sales, when you become a sewing machine person, come from conversions, from talking to people about their sewing and getting to know what they do, and then showing them the demonstrations. So really good sewing machine salespeople do demos every day. They do demos multiple times a day. When I come into the store, I have a million things going on, and I'm still going to demonstrate my best products probably 4 or 5 times in a day, because the demos really only take seconds to do, but they're powerful and they build value. And so that's why the price discounts, the marketing, anything that drives customers into the store, like the vendors, like Bernina does a lot of marketing, so does Baby Lock. They'll push out emails, mailers in the mail. They'll give us signage. We'll put up the signage in the store, and it'll say like, get a free pressure foot or a credit towards accessories, or get this fixed value off on a machine when you trade in. The promos are numerous, and there's like hundreds of them, hundreds of things. But the price discounts and the promos aren't what sell machines. And if they do, we don't do well on it. It's usually like a very slim margin. It's just those marketing promotions aren't the best thing for the business. The best thing is to use those to build interest. People come in that are interested because they see they're going to get something, an incentive. You talk to them, you build rapport about their needs, and then you go to the best product and do the demos on the best product. The demos you're going to do are pretty much kind of the same demos across the board on brands, on models, and on the style of demo that you do. So the best thing is to go ahead and show the best one every time. Because what's going to happen is that actually makes your job easier if you do have to sell down into a smaller model, okay? It doesn't mean you're trying to force feed high-end machines into people. It actually means you're going to bring them more value, and you're going to show them you know more about high-end machinery. And it's actually going to build more trust in you too as a professional. So the best thing to do is to go to the top of the line model as often as possible and predicate your demo on education and tell them, I'm going to educate you on Bernina, on Baby Lock, on Brother, on Genomi, Viking, so on and so forth. Doesn't matter what the brand is. I'm just going to educate you on the brand. and show you some things on this. Don't be intimidated. You know, this is the best one they make for sure. You know, whatever. If they're like, what's the price? You'd be like, I'll show you that. That's no problem. But what I want to show you is why Bernina is a great company, or why Baby Lock is a great company. It's actually the same thing with like Miele and Simplicity vacuums. Sometimes people are just like, I'm looking for a good vacuum. Great, let me educate you on why this is a really good brand, and use the best machine you have, because you'll build the most value up. And sometimes your demo with the top of the line machine will sell a midline machine or an entry level machine, and you'll be able to sell it at a higher price when you sell it, because you started out with such a higher price. And the customer gets more value. They're more sold on the product, and they're happier with it because they feel more confident about it when they take it home. And actually spending, when they go ahead and buy that low-end product or that midline product at the higher price point, or the MAP price or the MSRP or whatever, or we maybe give them a little bit of a trade-in or whatever it is, spending the money on the product builds their confidence level. They feel really good about what they bought because they invested in it. And so actually selling high-end makes people happier. They actually are more confident in their product. They're happier with you on the back end too when they come back. So showing the low-end models and doing the demos on the entry-level models is really a bad plan, and you shouldn't do it. You really shouldn't be going to entry-level models unless you've started out with the top of the line first, okay? Then you can do the demos down. But if you're showing entry-level and you're going right to entry-level, it's bad for the customer, it's bad for you obviously as a salesperson, and it's not productive in the store. Those entry-level models and those midline models are there for people that cannot afford a top-of-the-line model. And there's a big difference between people telling you, this is expensive and I can't afford this. Those are two different things. Complaining about price and saying something is expensive doesn't mean they don't have the money in their bank account to buy it. Saying that something is not affordable and they cannot buy it is saying they don't have the money in their bank account and they cannot afford to buy it. So there's two different things going on there. So when people are buying midline or they're buying entry level and they can't get the credit approval, they don't have the money to spend on it, that's what those products are there for as well. Okay, we want to sell top of the line machines to people that can afford to buy them. But unless we build the value and do the demos, they're not going to see a reason to expense their bank account and go ahead and get the merchandise or the product. So the best thing to do is show top of the line every time, because you never know who you're talking to as well. And they may have the resources in their bank account to go ahead and invest in a top of the line machine, or they may have the credit score to go ahead and finance the machine over a period of time. And financing machinery is actually a great tool, and probably financing on our top of the line stuff makes up about 30 to 40% of our sales. So you want to offer financing as a trial close throughout the demo, and make sure people are fully aware that we offer financing at different levels too. And we're very flexible. We can offer financing at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, all the way up to 60 months. And there's a lot of ways to finance things, even outside of the company that we use. So as a salesperson, you always want to take full responsibility for the transaction, and you want to look for ways to try to get somebody into the product and work with them. When people decide they like something and they tell you they like it and they start asking for discounts and they start asking for trainings, you start to negotiate. I'll do a whole other training on that. But basically, you're in a great position because they want the product at that point. So when people start asking about their trade-in, they start asking about specials, discounts, floor model purchases, things like that, those are buying questions. They want to buy, so you're in a great position actually. It doesn't mean you have to make concessions, it just means that they're really ready to buy. And you can actually go back to the demos and start building more value to get up to the price point. You're going to have a price, and then there's a level of value. You want your level of value to be at the price or above the price so that they buy. That's your job with demos. That's what demos do, is they're gonna adjust the value. You can price discount and come down to a level of value, but you really could have taken maybe 30 seconds, 2 minutes to do the right kind of demo to boom, bring your value up and sell at the right price. Or even sometimes you'll build so much value in a demo because you did such a good job hearing what they care about and demonstrating the things that matter to them, which builds extra value. You will give them a price and they will say, oh, only that much, and they'll buy. You've probably done a really good job building value if that happens, if people tell you that they're surprised at the price. So demonstrations are really important because you're building value with demonstrations. If you don't do the demonstrations, you're not going to build value, and you will not sell top of the line. You just won't. Nobody's going to walk in and just buy top of the line. And if it does happen, it's like maybe once a year, very rare, very affluent people. And in some markets, we don't have that luxury. We just don't have millionaires hanging out, coming into the store that are just going to buy $10,000 machines because they can. It's very rare, and there's very few places in the United States that have that kind of economy and have those kind of clients just hanging out. So we got to do demos, and that's why doing the demos are so important. So we're going to go over some demos. We're going to go over, on the machine, we'll go over some demos. And basically, if you're becoming a sewing machine salesperson, you're becoming a sewing machine professional, what you want to know is that the key to success is sewing machine demonstrations on a daily basis when you come into work. Okay, and if you try to shove demonstrations down people's throats, you're not going to get there. You may sell some equipment, but you have to speak to their needs. You have to become their friend and ask some questions, and then do the demos that matter to them. And they will give you the time to. And of course, the machines need to be prepared. We need to make sure we spend time setting them up and that they're threaded. We have the right attachments by them to show them what comes with the machine and build as much value in the machine as possible. But the demos are powerful, and it's amazing how you can do 2-minute demonstrations and sell $5,000 machines. You can do like 10-minute demonstrations and literally sell $15,000 packages. I've seriously, in my experience, I've experienced 2-minute demonstrations selling top-of-the-line machines and transacting at a $10,000 to $15,000 level. When it comes to quilting machines and long-arm equipment, those demonstrations are literally, when the machine's actually running, when you're actually running a long-arm quilting machine, sometimes the demonstrations are less than 1 minute. They're literally seconds long. You're just showing a quilting machine to a quilter, and you transact at a $20,000 to $25,000 level with the robotic equipment. So the demos are super powerful, and you never, ever, ever skip a demo. Customers will actually tell you that they don't want a demo sometimes, or they'll tell you they don't need a demo because they saw it somewhere else. So never ask for a demo, never ask if it's okay to do a demo. Just know that it's your job as a professional to do the demonstration, and just do the demonstration. It's just part of the cycle, it's part of the process. All you have to do is speak to their needs, ask them questions, find out what they're interested in, and then tell them, hey, I'm gonna show you something. Go to the equipment and show them, because the time is so low and it can be so impactful that if you skip the demonstrations, you're cutting yourself as a sewing machine salesperson where you're selling high-end equipment. On a weekly basis, you're probably cutting yourself out of thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in sales that hits the bottom line, that hits your paycheck, that hits your personal income and affects your lifestyle and affects your personal relationships, because that's what income does. So it's super important to do the demos on a regular basis as a sewing machine professional. Demos count. So you want to set a goal of demos, look at how many customers you talk to on a regular basis, how many people are you interacting with, how many machines are you checking in, and realize that all of those sewing people need some kind of demonstration of some kind of product or top of the line machine, probably on a daily basis, and that's your goal. You need to set a goal of demonstrations, a daily demo goal. What's your daily goal to demonstrate equipment? And now we're going to go through some different demos and give you some different tools to show the machines, and talk about some specific things as well regarding different brands, but mostly just basic sewing machine demos that you can do that sell top of the line machines and even entry level machines, as long as you do the demos. All right. Okay, so we're going to see what we want to do is make sure we're threaded down to our needle bar guide, and then we're going to hold the thread over and catch it on the way down with the needle threader. Okay, so that's important. And then we're going to see I'm crossing it across the eye of the needle while it's hooked around that peg. You have to push the needle threader down all the way to engage it. So that way the little hook on the needle threader goes through the eye of the needle. There's a little hook that goes to the back of the eye. And we're not going to hold the thread super taut. We're actually going to kind of let it back a little bit to let the slack out of it. And then we're going to put the thread into the threader. We'll feel a click, or we'll feel the hook of the needle threader actually grab onto the thread. And it's really important that we press down all the way so it turns all the way into the eye of the needle. When it starts to pull the loop through, don't just let go, slowly let go, let it up, and you'll see that it's pulling a loop through the eye of the needle. Okay, and then press over on the loop with your finger and grab on with the other one to go ahead and pull it through. All right, so it's really important that we go ahead and master this with the machinery that we're mastering so that we can do the demo in a fast manner, so that way the customer sees the value in the needle threader and the convenience that it offers. We want to make sure that the machine is going to go ahead and catch that thread and then just pull it through the eye of the needle. And if you have to kind of do it like I just did, where you press down on it a few times, make sure it's engaging on the thread and pulling through. If you let go of the needle threader and it doesn't pull the thread through, your demo's shot. They're not going to see the value in the needle threader. They need to see that it's convenient and it's going to help them, especially if they have bad eyesight. Okay, then this way you don't have to look at the eye of the needle very close to thread it. So make sure that you do your needle threader demo over and over until you have it down to where you know you can go ahead and demonstrate this in a matter of maybe like just 3 or 4 seconds. You can demonstrate a needle threader very easily. And you want to make it look convenient. You know, we want to make sure that this is not a big deal for the customer and that they can thread the needle very easily. Okay, so that's the needle threader demo. Okay, so with Bernina machines, you need to demonstrate how the pressure foot comes on and off so that you can show them the feed teeth in the bottom of the machine. Go ahead and raise the pressure foot up, either use the lever or press the button on the front. And then we're going to go ahead and using our index finger, we're going to go underneath the lever that holds the foot on the back side of the machine. You'll see there's a lever on the left-hand side when you're facing the pressure bar. You're going to grab onto the foot with your middle finger and your thumb, just like this, and flip that lever up and pull down. And then the foot will come off, just like that. Now we're going to go ahead and have them inspect the feed teeth, show them how great the feed teeth are, so they can see the quality in those feed teeth. If it's a dual feed machine, you're also going to show them how this comes down in the back and pull it down. Without the pressure foot on, you can then lower this down and they can see how it precisely lines up on the feed teeth. And then go ahead and just turn the hand wheel 2 or 3 cycles to show how dual feed will transport the fabric from top and bottom. We've just demonstrated dual feed and what it is and how there's a little tooth on the bottom. You can feel that lines up with that rear feed tooth right there. Very quick demo. Now we're going to go ahead and show them how we can take the pressure foot and put it on with one hand. Same technique, but we're going to come in sideways, put the foot on, and then flip the lever down, and the foot is on. To demonstrate how easy it is, you're going to want to go ahead and practice this so you can do it fluidly with a quick movement in front of your customer so that your customer is cool with going ahead and doing those movements. And they see that it's convenient. And remember, you're not training the customer on how to do this right now because they haven't purchased the machine. We're just showing them, hey, this is very easy. See how easy that is? You can take your pressure foot on and off very easily with the Bernina machine, engage the dual feed or disengage it as you see necessary. Okay, so that's a demo. Okay, so we want to talk about the inside of the machine with the customer and how easy it is for the customer to go ahead and clean their machine, access the parts on the inside. So this is a Bernina demo. So we're going to flip the lever up and remove the foot, make sure it looks really easily. It looks easily done. So we're going to go ahead and press the back right corner of the needle plate down. That will raise the needle plate up a little bit. We're going to put our finger underneath and pick that up. So you'll see how the needle plate came off and how there's 3 little leaf springs on the bottom that hold that on there. And we're just going to point out how easy it is to get inside of here and how there's even a little red mark for an oil reservoir inside this machine to help oil the hook system. So it's really nice. Customers like to be able to maintain their stuff. They like to know that they can clean this if they need to. Go ahead and oil in that oil reservoir, and you can show the metal parts of the inside of the machine. Then we're going to go ahead and open the front. We're going to show how the bobbin on a 7 series like this, you just press it and it comes right out. Okay. On the other types of Berninas, there's a latch that you're going to pull the bobbin out, but we're going to go ahead and pull the bobbin out, and we're going to press the spring-loaded latch on the left-hand side, and we're going to see that the race comes out. And then grab onto the center pin of the hook, lean the hook towards us, and pull it out. We leaned it towards us and pulled it out. If you pull straight out, it won't come out so easy, and it just comes out. Now we can show the customer the larger hook. We can show them how we can clean inside of here. It's all very accessible and very user-friendly. The back of the hook has a magnet on it, and it's all metal all the way around, and it has a spring-loaded spring in the middle for the bobbin, and sometimes I just throw the hook up onto the free arm to show how it's magnetized and how it will just magnetize itself on there. When putting the hook in, we're going to go ahead and line up the hole in the hook with the white dot on the basket. This is the basket, the thing that turns the hook around. We have to put the bottom of the hook in first, okay, and then rotate it with our fingers until the magnet pulls it into place. Then we're going to close this and push on the left-hand side till we feel a snap so we know it's in place. Then taking the bobbin with the arm facing up, it's going to go ahead and snap in, just like that. With these better machines, we can actually also show the customer how the larger bobbin is going to hold more thread. On the smaller machines, the bobbin is going to go in basically the same way, and we're going to face the little arm up. It finds its sweet spot and pops into place. For demonstration purposes, we want to be able to go through this motion very fast, okay? The needle plate, actually these two right here have to line up first on the left-hand side, and you'll see there's two pins that fall into place on the left-hand side. Then we're going to push down on the right-hand side, popping it into place. It's important that we do it in that sequence because it's different than when it comes off. When it comes off, we push down and pick up on the front. If you try to put it on in the same fashion from back to front, it doesn't work as well, and you can actually bend these little springs and break them. So it's important that you go on the left-hand side first and then push down on the right-hand side to replace the plate. So it's really important that we go through this demo to make it fast, because remember, our window of opportunity with machines is very limited. This is a great demo to do if somebody's jammed their machine and we have to check it in for service, and that it's not a Bernina machine obviously, but they brought in another machine, it's jammed, we have to put tools on it, it's going to cost like $150 to service it and unjam it and all that stuff. And you can go ahead and say, hey, have you ever heard of a quick release needle plate? Let me show you. And you can go ahead and take the foot off, pop the needle plate off, open this up, take your bobbin case out, release the race, pull the hook out, and show them how big the hook is and how it's magnetized in all of the metal parts and the great components. Now you're going to go ahead and line it back up, make sure it goes into place the way it's supposed to, close your race just like that, put the needle plate on left side to right side, close the door, and then you can put your pressure foot on, okay? So we show them how easy it's done. And of course we don't want to forget the bobbin and how the bobbin just pops right in, and show them how the thread cuts on the side right here so there's a tail just long enough to go ahead and sew. That's how fast we want to do that demo. All right? Okay, so we're going to do a really basic Bernina demo. You can do this on any Bernina machine. I have here a really solid piece of leather, or a pleather, fake leather. You can also do this with denim, so make sure you want to do this demo almost on a daily basis, if possible. So make sure you have like 5 to 10 of these at your demo station. So 5 to 10 pieces of denim, or like leather like this. It's not super thick leather, but it's still leather. It's impressive. We're just making a presentation. We don't have to go too crazy with this. We're going to make a point. We're going to show what the direct current motor system can do, the feed teeth, all of the awesome features can do on this machine. So it's really important. Make sure you have this stuff ready. You got to be prepared. Make sure the machine is threaded and ready to go. We're going to go ahead and engage the dual feed on this machine. Now, if you don't have dual feed on the machine you're demonstrating, don't worry. You can still pull this off. But if you use dual feed on an upper line machine, you're going to have a better demonstration. We're going to go ahead and turn our stitch length up to a 4. Okay, you get a better demonstration when you do this if your stitch length is at a 4, so generally higher. You don't have to explain that to the customer, just do it. All we're going to do is impress them. We're just going to adjust our stitch length up, engage the dual feed. We don't have to explain why we're doing that stuff or that we've done it even. We're just going to do it to show them. So we're going to take the leather and we're going to fold it so that it's 3 layers. So we have 3 layers going on right there. Okay, we're going to put our 3 layers underneath the pressure foot first and make sure that there's some coming out the back side. Okay, we want to make sure that we have it under there. We don't want to stitch when there's no fabric underneath the needle with the Bernina. We're not going to do that. We're going to jam the machine if we do that. So we're going to make sure the fabric's coming off the back side, and we're good to go. We're going to go ahead and turn the speed down a little bit to get started here and stitch through this leather. Okay, the machine's going to tie off and it's going to start to do its thing. All right. So we sew all the way to the end. Make sure your auto pivot's engaged so you can go ahead and show what auto pivot does, where we can pivot the fabric without using any controls. It just automatically lifted that for us. Okay, we've stitched our 3 layers, and now we're going to go ahead and fold this over, but we're going to do it in such a way that the seam faces the toe of the foot. Okay, and see how we have at least 2 inches right here of fold. We want a nice long fold right there. Okay, and we're going to fold it over so that it's actually underneath the toe of the foot if possible, right up to it. So we can go ahead and pressure foot down, and then we're going to go ahead and slowly we're going to start to sew and let the machine do the work. It's going to go ahead and do the work. It's going to go ahead and pull the fabric through, and we're going to let it just pull it through. Now we're going to stop. Once the needle is in the seam and it's up there, we're going to turn the speed all the way down, and we're going to use the start-stop button. This is a selling point, that we can run the machine just using a button and not the pressure foot. And we're showing how the machine will penetrate all these layers of leather without hesitating at all. No problem. Just pierces right through there. Okay, and then we can show auto pivot again, and we can rotate if we need to, just like that. So really impressive demo, and then we're going to repeat it by switching around and firing the machine back up again. Now, if you're using leather like we are in this scenario, we want to make sure we do possibly have leather needles on hand. This demo is best used for denim. Denim is really the best thing to go ahead and show the piercing power of a Bernina machine. But we always want to repeat the demo with the customer because of how fast it does go and how easy it is to go ahead and repeat this demo and just show how it will penetrate all these layers. Sometimes you may have to push down on your sample so that the foot can kind of flatten out while it's feeding and start to go through. And it'll pull that through, no problem, just like that. Okay? So we're sewing through 12 layers of leather. And then we're going to go ahead and run our scissors so we can show off the scissors. The machine will cut the thread automatically and lift the foot. So we have our sample. Okay, and we can see all those layers of leather that we just stitched through. Always take the sample and hand it to the customer. So you're going to take all those 12 layers that we just stitched, and you're going to hand it to the customer so they can inspect it and they can see the quality. Okay, so that's super duper important. Sometimes over the course of a day, I'll do several of these demos, and we'll have other ones, and I'll actually hold on to these. This is one where I only did 6 layers of leather, which is just as impressive in some cases. So if you're on a smaller machine or a different type of machine, maybe not a Bernina, feel free to still do 6 layers, and they'll actually still be very impressed by it because it's a lot. You don't necessarily have to do the 12-layer demo. But this is also a good demonstration to use to show off the piercing power of the machine. Basically, when the machine is going to sew over the seam without hesitating at all. It's very impressive. And you can just go back and forth. So, if you have your sample out or you've already made a sample, you can actually just go ahead and throw it underneath the pressure foot and show how a Bernina will sew over seams, leather seams or denim seams with no problem at all, and we can auto pivot, okay? So your time to the demo can be very fast with this demonstration, and you can show the thread cutter, you can show the auto pivot function, and there's some other fun features you can show on the nicer machines. So when you come, sit down with the customer, have your sample ready, you can just show them right away. If you're in a time crunch situation about how these can sew multiple layers very easily, auto pivot, climb seams, and how you can run a thread cutter. And we can actually show off 3 or 4 different features, no problem, in a matter of seconds. All right. Okay, so when you're doing the denim demonstration, you want to make sure you have enough samples to do lots of demonstrations, okay? Over the course of a day, this is one of your most basic demos, and it's a really easy demo to do to show off Bernina machinery as far as like how they're going to sew over 12 layers of fabric and how they're going to perform really well with sewing heavy seams. So the best thing to do is to have lots of denim on hand and you're going to have a sample that's about 8 to 10 inches long to perform these demos. And you never want to be without your samples to perform these demos. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and take a roll of denim like this and go ahead and cut it into those using a rotary cutter and a mat is the fastest way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and open up this roll here. And we keep these in the shop. If you don't have any, make sure you talk to your manager, get some on order. Make sure you have at least 2 or 3 of these in the shop because you need to be using these on a daily basis to show off machines. We use the denim to even demonstrate the smaller machines, and so it's really important that you're prepped and ready to go. If you just have this big roll and you got to cut some of this up while the customer's waiting, they're not going to be as impressed with your demo, or they're just going to leave, and you're not going to be able to see them. So you're not going to be able to show it to them. They're not going to be able to see the machine. So we're going to go ahead and cut some of these off. And you can see with the rotary cutter, this is really easy. We can just go ahead, cut our denim demos. No problem. And you'll actually see that even though we're going through a whole roll, it doesn't really take that long to prep your demos for a long period of time. If you're keeping 5 to 10 of these at your station, at each station by the machines, or maybe you have a pod of machines, like a grouping of machines, and you're just gonna put like 10 or 20 of these between 4 or 5 machines, you can cut up one of these rolls and it's gonna last maybe for a whole month or even weeks at a time, depending on how often you're doing your demos. But you need to have these ready, and if you're out of them, you need to go cut some up and just take the time it takes to do this. And you'll see that when I do this, this is probably going to take me less than 10 minutes to go ahead and cut all of these denim samples up. So we're ready to reproduce that demo. And so over heavy seams, we're going to show off the direct current motor with the Berninas. We're going to go ahead and show off the piercing power, auto pivot. We're going to show thread cutters with this. And sometimes you can actually double denim over and sew with a lighter colored decorative thread to show off decorative stitches on the denim and show how you can actually sew decorative stitches with higher quality machinery on the denim. Okay, so you can see how we've almost got our stack of demos going here. And if you have scissors at each station, you want to make sure you have scissors at each sewing machine demo station so you can cut threads, cut fabric. If you need to, you can cut one of these longer strips down to do smaller samples if you need to. It's no problem. There we go. So you have to be prepared to do these demos if you're going to make your demos fast and you're going to demonstrate machines to lots of people. Have to make sure that we're prepared and that our materials are ready to go. It's really important. We're getting to the end of the roll now. And we're good to go. So we've got all of our samples. We're going to lay them out by the machines. Okay, so I'm going to show you the denim demonstration with denim. 2 techniques. One technique is for machines that have dual feed or machines that have direct current motors like Bernina machines. And then I'm going to show you a technique for smaller machines, mechanical Janome style machines or mechanical style baby lock machines, brothers. So we're going to fold the fabric into 3 layers. So we're going to fold this over so we have 3 layers of denim. And we're going to push the fabric so it's totally under the pressure foot. 3 layers totally underneath. Okay. And then we're going to lower the foot down to put pressure on it so we can then keep our fabric folded. And I turned my length up to a 4. Turn the stitch length up to 4. All right, we're going to go ahead and start to stitch. And we're going to stitch our 3 layers all the way. Okay, and then we're going to show auto pivot, how we can just go ahead and turn our fabric, no problem. We're going to stitch a few stitches onto the fabric. And then with the foot up, I'm going to fold the fabric So I've got a nice like 2 inches or so of the really thick layers. And the seam is under the toe of the foot. It's under the toe of the pressure foot. We're gonna go ahead and start to sew. And now, once my needle's in the fabric, in the seam, I'm gonna turn the speed down all the way and just use the start-stop button. I'm running the machine without a foot pedal at the slowest speed. And we can see how I'm penetrating 12 layers of denim without any hesitation with the machine. So it's a really impressive demonstration. We're gonna stop the machine and run the thread cutter to show the customer how it'll cut the thread, and you can remove. Hand the sample to the customer so they can check it out. They're like, yep, so it's 12 layers of denim. It's pretty awesome. And then we're gonna run it one more time just to impress them at speed. Run the thread cutter one more time. Okay, so that's the first technique. That's the 12-layer denim demo. Now I'm gonna show you the one for smaller machines or machines that we feel like we want it to be more confident demo. You don't wanna try to push a machine too hard if you're not 100%. So if you're on a smaller machine, you're still gonna impress them with sewing multiple layers. Just take a piece of denim, fold it over in half. Okay, we're just gonna sew 2 layers, just like, you know, like a normal seam. Okay, and then we're gonna fold that over on itself. Remember, we want the fold to go underneath the pressure foot. Okay, so we're under the toe of the pressure foot. See if it's not, we might have an issue, so we're gonna go underneath that toe. So we can show, all we're showing is that we're sewing 6 layers of denim. No problem. Sewing that heavy, heavy denim. And then we could go ahead and maybe just select a decorative stitch or something fun and finish off this seam. Just for fun. And always make sure to show your sample to the customer and then ask them if they're impressed. It's a way of testing your customer to see if they're ready to buy. Isn't that impressive? Or say, isn't that nice? If they say yes, you're on the right track. All right? There you go. Okay, so before you start doing demos with people, you need to handle all their needs up front, whether it's repair customer, supply customer, or information seeker. They're just looking for information. That's all good. So you want to take care of all of that and build rapport with them and then ask them questions. So you want to make sure you're making them like your friend, you're being really friendly with them, being really positive, talking about positive things. Don't want to go into conversations about negative stuff or things that are off topic. It's unprofessional and it's going to detract from your goal to go ahead and demonstrate the sewing machine. Before you get into demonstrating the sewing machine, you need to ask some questions so you can justify your demo and also speak to their needs. So you want to ask them what kind of sewing they do. The series of questions you want to ask around qualifying questions are going to kind of lead down a rabbit hole of questions. So you want to ask what kind of sewing somebody does, and when they tell you, you want to ask more questions about that type of sewing. So if they tell you that they just sew everything, you want to ask them, what's your favorite thing to sew? Start honing in on the really positive stuff that they like a lot. So if they're like, I sew everything, great, what's your favorite thing to sew? If they say they do quilting, you want to ask them, what part of making a quilt do you like the most? Do you like to piece the top? Do you like to do free motion sewing? Do you like to do applique? Do you like to finish your own quilt, doing free motion or long arm quilting? Stitching in the ditch is another method. Do you do your own binding, which involves sewing thick layers that go around the quilt? Do you like to embroider your quilt tops? Have you ever thought about embroidering your quilt tops? Do you like cutting the fabric? Have you ever seen a cutting machine even? You can transition into that. So with quilting, those questions that I just lined out, there's probably at least another 6 to 7 questions you can ask around building a quilt and what involves making a quilt to really funnel in on what you want to show them, okay, what you want to demonstrate to them. And your opportunities for the demonstration are going to be around what they currently do and what they want to do with their sewing. So you want to ask qualifying questions about what do they currently do and then what do they aspire to do. Because new machines are going to let you go ahead and do things you can't do with your current machines. So meeting their aspirations or their goals is a great way to sell machines as well and get to your demonstration by showing them that stuff. And the ultimate culmination with your demo is to show exclusive features that only that machine has around what they aspire to do with their sewing. And that creates machine sales a lot more than anything else, ultimately. We want to show people that the machines can do what they would like them to do, what they already do. They need to accomplish what they're already doing and make it even better, but also we can do things that are above and beyond, like what they aspire to do. With embroidery, if they say, I like to do embroidery, that's great, because if somebody already does embroidery, new embroidery machines offer a lot of new technology that we can talk about or show them. And people that do embroidery that really enjoy it like to run embroidery machines, and so they're going to let you run an embroidery pattern every time, pretty much. So, when you ask them what kind of sewing you do, if they say they like to do embroidery, you want to ask them, what kind of machine do you have? Do you like to do in-the-hoop projects? Do you like to do in-the-hoop appliques? Do you do monograms? Do you use software? When you do embroidery, is there a certain company you buy designs from? Is your machine USB capable? Can you use Wi-Fi transferability with your machine? A lot more machine questions are involved around embroidery. What kind of stabilizers do you like to use? Is there a certain company of stabilizers that you like to use? What kind of projects are you working on right now? That's another general question you can ask sewers, quilters, and embroiderers. What kind of project are you working on right now? And a lot of times, not only will they tell you, but they actually have pictures on their phone anymore. They're going to show you a picture of what they're working on or something they just finished. And this will help you understand even more about what they're doing. Before we go into the demo or before we start doing these quick demonstrations to maybe build some interest so we can really do a full comprehensive demo to sell a top-of-the-line machine, we need to make sure we really understand what someone does with their sewing. So your qualifying questions should be made before you do the demo. There should be at least 5 to 6 qualifying questions in general before you roll into a machine demo. And you can ask your qualifying questions while you're helping them with their needs that they come into the store for anyway. You can actually qualify somebody into a machine while you're helping them with the repair, while you're helping them with small merchandise purchases, while you're helping them with information that they need, while you're helping them register for a class. Any of these minor things that people come into the store for that you're helping them with and giving them good service, you want to go ahead and start building up your qualifying questions to a machine sale before you get to the demo. What kind of sewing do you do? What kind of project are you working on right now? What do you like to do now with your sewing? What do you wish you could do with your sewing? What kind of machine do you have? What kind of patterns do you like to run on it? How long have you had that machine? How often do you sew? Those are also repair qualifying questions, but those are really important questions to ask as well if you're qualifying somebody that maybe is just coming in for a pack of needles. If somebody's just coming in for a pack of needles and you ask them how often they sew and they say every day, you're dealing with a qualified prospect. You're dealing with someone that cares a lot about their sewing and they would easily pay another $150 or $200 a month for 5 years for a top-of-the-line machine. Or they might even just have the money to drop $9,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a better machine because they sew every day and they're using their machine all the time. If you don't ask that question while they're buying their pack of needles, you'll never see that opportunity, you'll never do the demo, and it'll never happen. You'll just clerk the merchandise for the needles, they'll get their needles and they'll leave because they're gonna go back to sewing because that's what they do every day. And they're like, all right, I gotta go back to sewing, they're gonna go back to sewing. So you wanna ask the qualifying questions and get involved with the customer and put yourself in their shoes as much as possible, or else you're not gonna have these opportunities to make sales on walk-in customers, okay? So there's some really important questions there. You want to think about all of the questions, your qualifying questions, because it's going to lead to the demo. If they sew garments, you want to do demos that are like buttonholes. You want to show gathering techniques. You want to show the ability to move your needle position for inserting zippers. You want to look at heavy seam demos, sewing heavy seams. It's important for garment sewers. Dual feed transportation for stretchy fabrics or lighter fabrics. You want to go into those kinds of demos. For quilters, they're going to care about applique demos, they're going to care about free motion demos, they're going to care about quarter-inch piecing demos, showing how you can do quarter-inch seam allowance. They're going to care about auto pivot. They really care about auto pivot a lot. That's for quilters mostly. For embroiderers, they're going to want to see an embroidery machine run right away. And they're going to care a lot about embroidery machine features. They're going to care about cutting jump stitches automatically, combining patterns on the screen, the interface of the machine, and what it's capable of doing for embroidery. Does it have the capability to merge designs? Does it have the capability to do endless embroidery? You can embroider a design, and then embroider another design, and they line up to make a bigger pattern. Does it have that capability? They're going to care a lot about hoop size. They may have an embroidery machine that's smaller, and they see a bigger hoop, and immediately they're thinking about trading up, maybe if they really like embroidery a lot. Unless they see the bigger hoop size and unless they see those demos, they're not going to be interested in that stuff. And if you're really lucky, you're going to be dealing with somebody that's an everything sewer. They love to make quilts, they love to embroider, and they love to sew everything, and they sew all the time. They sew on a regular basis, and you can actually demonstrate all of those things on a top-of-the-line machine to them, and they'll be really interested because they're really passionate about sewing, and they may give you hours of their time and then spend $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 with you because they really see a lot of value in an upper line machine, especially in all of those categories, or the people that meet all of those categories. If they haven't bought a new sewing machine in over 10 years or so, maybe even less sometimes, their machine is so out of date. There's so many new things in sewing machines. Just showing them that stuff really sparks the interest about getting into a modern sewing machine. So it's really important to ask the questions so you go to the right demo. Now, if you go and do the demos and you do the wrong demos, people won't see the value, and they'll maybe even think about not buying a new sewing machine or even dealing with you, because whether consciously or subconsciously, they're going to know you're not listening to their needs, and they're going to know, and they'll be very turned off by your demo. They're going to be very turned off by your aggressive approach to do the demonstration when you didn't ask the questions and you're not demonstrating towards the needs. So asking qualifying questions and then doing the demonstration is super important because they're tied right together. So that's what you want to make sure you're doing, those qualifying questions. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do an applique demo, and this is a sewing applique demo. So you can do applique with embroidery and sewing. So with this demo, it's important that you use a piece of denim, or if you use normal fabric, you back it with stabilizer. Because you need something to be kind of dense or kind of sturdy on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and cut a shape out of a piece of fabric that contrasts in color. So the color needs to contrast against the fabric that we're going to sew the applique down on. That's really important for our presentation. Same thing with the thread. You want the thread to contrast against that fabric. We're using a light blue on a really dark blue, so that's pretty good. That's contrasting. If you even have a white on a dark blue, that's even better. The more it contrasts, the more it's going to pop, and we're trying to make an impression and make it impressive. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select a zigzag stitch. Okay. Now, if you're using a machine like a Bernina with dual feed, you don't have to worry too much about changing the presser foot. But if you're using a machine that is like a snap-on foot machine or something like that, for this demo, we want to go ahead and use like an N-style Brother Baby Lock foot or an F-style Janome foot that's channeled on the bottom to allow the thick satin stitch to run out the bottom and not jam the machine up. If you jam the machine during your demo, you're gonna fail. Then they're gonna most of the time not want to see the rest of your demo. So it's really important that you either use dual feed, which means the feed system that pulls down, we want to make sure this is engaged, or we're using a decorative stitch or satin stitch foot on a different brand. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fold this piece of fabric in half. This is a really simple demo too. And we're going to cut it out into a heart. So we just cut it out. So that's a really quick way to just cut out a quick shape. We just cut it out of that heart. Whoop, no problem. And we can see we cut that heart out, okay? So once we cut the heart out, we're gonna go ahead and take our piece of denim. And this is the easiest thing to do with denim because we're gonna have a lot of denim hanging out that we have cut up for our other seam demos where we're sewing over heavy seams and thick layers of denim. We're just gonna put it on there. And you can see I don't do the best job cutting out shapes, but all we're doing is making a point. All you want to do is cut your shape out and then sew it down onto the fabric. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. You'll see most pressure feet have a middle line in the middle of the foot where you can see where the center line is, and then we're going to line that up on the edge of the fabric while we stitch. If the machine is set for auto pivoting, we want to go ahead and turn on the auto pivot feature on these machines. Okay, we've already got it turned on this machine. If you don't know how to do it, you need to go get the manual for the machine and figure out how to turn auto pivot on so that the machine's going to raise the pressure foot and leave the needle down. Or if it has a freehand system, it'll have a bar that plugs into the front of the machine that you push over with your knee to go ahead and lift the pressure foot up and down. That's a freehand system, and you can use the freehand system when you're doing this demo to go ahead and make pivots to show how you can keep your hands on the fabric and keep everything precise and controlled while you're stitching at the same time. So now we're going to go ahead and change our zigzag stitch. I'm going to set my zigzag stitch to a 5mm. Okay, 5 is a pretty good number to be on for most machines. Then we're going to turn our stitch length down to a 0.2. So we're at a 0.2 stitch length. And that's going to be a good stitch length to run for most machines. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set our pressure foot down on the long side of the heart, the side of the heart that has more distance here. We don't want to start out on a curve and we don't want to start out on a point. We want to start out on the long side of the heart. And we want to line up that center position on the sewing foot right on the middle. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start to stitch. And we're going to turn our speed up a little bit here. And the key here is to keep everything lined up. And we're going to stitch all the way down to the point of the heart. To a turn on the heart. So we can start to adjust. And use auto pivot. And with a Bernina, you can actually do a lot of turning while the machine sews pretty smoothly. A lot of other high quality machines that have wider feed bases allow for that as well. So we're showing a lot of auto pivot here as we complete the sewing applique, and how we can just keep making our turns precise. And okay, so what we're gonna see here, we can see the satin stitch and how it's stitched our heart out. Okay, so this time we're gonna do the demo with a foot that has a better stitch escape for applique, and I'm gonna use the freehand system. This is called the FHS, the freehand system. I call it a freehand system for customers. There's a lot of nomenclature you wanna leave out of your demo. Don't use acronyms like BSR or FHS or anything like that. You want to explain things in layman terms, so basic terms for people. This is a freehand system, this rod here. And so what that means, because then you can explain it to them, this is something that plugs into the front of the machine, and they have a little icon of this on the machine so we know where it's at. And now it lifts the pressure foot up and down. Okay? So when demonstrating this, when doing this, you need to sit with the machine with the needle right in front of you, on center. Okay, and then the foot pedal needs to go ahead and be right next to where the freehand system is, so your foot naturally rests on it. So that way, your knee is resting on the rod. All right, this is how we demonstrate the freehand system. Okay, so we would scoot right up to our foot pedal, resting our heel on the back of the foot pedal, so our foot's all the way on the foot pedal. Then we can easily push over to raise our pressure foot up and down while keeping our hands on the project.
Sorry.
So when you demonstrate the freehand system, you're going to talk about 3 features. When you demonstrate things, you always want to talk about features and then benefits. Never just give somebody a feature without giving them the actual application or benefit. Features to benefits. So the feature here is a freehand system. This rod will raise the pressure foot up and down. So there's a system where it actually raises the pressure foot up and down. It actually drops the feed dogs. And what you'll see is that even when the feed dogs or the feed teeth are up, what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and raise the pressure foot up and watch what happens to the feed dogs. The feed dogs actually drop down. That's so when the fabric gets pushed underneath here, we push fabric underneath, it doesn't get caught on the feed teeth. It smoothly goes into place. So it's raising the pressure foot, it's lowering the feed dogs, and then it's actually releasing the upper tension. By releasing the upper tension, we're able to go ahead and the thread just comes out. Just releases very easily. This is so if you're stitching and the machine is sewing and you go ahead and raise the needle up and you push over on the freehand system, you can go ahead and take your fabric out, okay? And then you can go ahead and cut the fabric. So that's super important. So there's 3 things happening with the freehand system. It raises the pressure foot, drops the feeds, and releases the upper tension so you can go ahead and pull your project away if you need to, okay? So it's actually doing multiple things for us with that freehand system, which is really nice. So now we're going to go ahead and do another applique. And we're going to make sure we have a square of denim. Or again, if you use some fabric, you got to make sure you stabilize it. This is a little bit more advanced demo. This demo is for people that are quilters, people that are crafters that want to embellish things with appliques or shapes, fabric shapes. So we'll go ahead and put this down, just like that. And then we're going to use our freehand system for this. So there's a variety of models that have the freehand system and have auto pivot function. If the machine has auto pivot, a lot of times it's good to go ahead and show this demo with auto pivot because it's just automatic, which is a really nice feature. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and thread our machine up. And we're going to start the applique. And if we start our applique and we're getting stitch buildup, it's good to go ahead and just go ahead and increase the stitch length.
So the satin stitch applique is one type of applique you can show. Another that's really common is the blanket stitch applique, and we'll show that next.
Okay. So we're showing auto pivot, freehand system, we're showing the thread cutter, and we can see that that applique has this nice satin stitch all the way around with a nice little finish on the inside. So what you can do if you're showing this to a quilter, what they're going to care a lot about is free motion. So you can then just take a hopping foot, put it on the machine, go back to a straight stitch, press the button on the machine to drop the feed dogs, and then you can go ahead and do little micro stipples in your heart. Just to show them, and a good way to do this is to grab onto your sample on both sides and actually physically move the sample to go ahead and free motion your sample. And you can see we've got a little free motioned heart there. So that's really pretty. So you can do that kind of demo with quilters, crafters. The free motion I'd add for a quilter to show free motion real quick and how easy it is to go ahead and switch over. So that's always good. But basically we want to show the applique with the satin stitch. So now we're going to go ahead and do an applique with a blanket stitch. So we'll go ahead and re-engage our feed system. And we're going to go ahead and put our pressure foot back on. Engage the dual feed. If it's a dual feed machine, you always want to show dual feed as much as possible. Grab that gray piece of fabric. Sweet. Okay, and we're going to cut another shape out. So we'll cut out another applique shape. And sometimes if you just have your shapes cut and ready to go, maybe you have a cutting machine in the store or something you can use, to cut some shapes out, some really basic shapes. Don't make them too complex for your demo. You can just have these fabric shapes ready to go and ready to show off for applique. So now we're going to go ahead and pick the blanket stitch on the machine. So I'll show that here. You can see it, okay. Okay. So when we pick the blanket stitch, we're going to go mostly to a quilting stitch menu on most machines. And then we're going to go ahead and select the stitch that looks like a straight line with the stitches coming off the side. Now this is a great opportunity to show features on the machine in the editing function if it's a computerized model, like stitch mirroring and the ability to flip a stitch in a different direction, and then to go ahead and change the width of the stitch and the length to customize it. And then we can even position the stitch on center so that line, that main line, is on the center position, because we're going to line that same line up onto our applique. All right, so now I'm going to show that. Good, okay. So this is a blanket stitch applique. And I'm just keeping the edge of the fabric right on that line. So the main thing that we're telling the customer here is that we're able to auto pivot, we're able to adjust our stitch, we can mirror image it for what we want to do for our applique purposes. And then we can applique our heart down. And even if you're not perfect like me, like I don't do a good job lining things up or, you know, making things go in the right direction, we still have a pretty applique here. And then this presents the opportunity for decorative stitching and stitch sequencing. Just like I free motioned in the middle of the other one, we can go ahead and show off a decorative stitch here. So I can select a decorative stitch. I'll just select a decorative stitch here in this menu. And so we'll select the flower menu. And in our floral menu, we've got a lot of different options here. You can actually fly the menu out on these Berninas so we can see all of them. I always like to, even if I know what stitch I'm going to select, I like to scroll stitch menus so the customer can see lots of stitch menus. And then we can go ahead and select something like a single flower. And we're going to go ahead and sew this. And I'm just going to sew one flower on this. And with this machine, we can go ahead and sew and press our pattern stop command. And it's just going to sew one flower. And when it completes that one flower, it's going to stop and cut the thread. So we can show how we have a pattern stop command to just do one flower. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And now we're doing something kind of fun and different, you know, a little bit creative here. So we put another flower on the other side. Okay, so it's a fun little applique. So it's good to do embellishments after you do an applique demo. So that way you're showing some other features as well. It doesn't take very long. When I put those flowers on there, it was really only a matter of a few extra seconds to show off some decorative stitching on the machine. Okay, if you're doing free motion on your demo, kind of like I did on this one, just do little squiggles all the way around and don't cross your lines. Just make little squiggles. It's called stippling. And quilters can relate to that a little bit. So those are basic embellishment demos that you can do for sewing on sewing machines. Okay. All right. So basically you want to have, just like with the denim, you want to have quilt sandwiches cut and ready to go for your demo stations for free motion quilting demos. Quilting is a super popular thing. There's tons of quilters and it makes up a huge demographic of sewing machine sales. So free motion quilting demos are super important. You have to do them. So make sure that your quilt sandwiches are ready to go by each of the pods or like the areas where the sewing machines are. It's really easy. All we're gonna do is we're gonna cut up like a 24-inch by 24-inch or 12-inch by 12-inch area so that way we can make a quilt sandwich. So I have this folded over so I can just go ahead and cut like a couple of these, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And a good trick that you can use is you can actually just pick how far you want, like how many inches you want. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm gonna go 12 inches, cut the edge of the fabric, and then rip it down the seam, okay? And you're gonna have a more straight edge than if you try to cut it, okay? Then we're gonna go ahead and cut this roughly in half. We're just gonna cut it, tear it, okay? And now we have our squares that we want to use. Okay, just real quick. It's a quick way to make a demo. So to make our quilt sandwiches, we're gonna get some batting. Okay, this batting is really thin. Okay, we don't want super thick batting, but we need some body so that way when we free motion, it pops up and we really see the stitches, we really see the batting popping up, and it really shows off the demo. Okay, we want to impress people. So we're gonna go ahead and double this over So it's really in there. And it's okay if your batting runs over a little bit around the square, or if it's on the inside, as long as it's covering most of that area. Okay? So we're gonna go ahead. Now, when we throw it inside, we wanna make sure we use a little bit of 505 or some spray-on stuff. You'll see the 505, and we're gonna go ahead and spray that on. You're gonna hold it over the cloth a little bit. And hit some of that. Then you're gonna go ahead and spray your batting a little bit, hit that. You're gonna go ahead and stick it down. Press down. Then you're gonna go ahead and spray that. Spray the other piece. I'm gonna fold this over, but you might even have another cut piece and you're just gonna put that on. Just like this. And always press from the inside out, make sure it's all nice and smooth. Don't have a lot of wrinkles. And it's that easy. We've got a quilt sandwich. We could even just trim this edge off here. Just like that. Okay, so when we're doing a free motion demo, we want our thread colors to contrast against the fabric that we're gonna free motion on. So I have a bright neon color that's really gonna pop on this black. Okay, this way our tensions are gonna look a lot better, because tensions can be irregular when you're free motion sewing, and you don't want the customer to pick apart your tensions, so always match your colors when you're demonstrating. Okay, as much as possible, make sure your demo machines have the same thread on top and bottom and using a high quality thread so you don't run into problems, all right? It's especially important when you get into these free motion quilting demos. So we're gonna go ahead and thread the machine up. So we're getting ready to go here. Now, we have to make sure when we're doing a free motion demo that we drop our feed system on. No matter what machine you're working on, drop your feed system. So make sure you press the button or flip the switch, wherever it is. I'll take the foot off so we can see. You're gonna go ahead and make sure the feed teeth are down. All right? Now, since we're gonna do this on a Bernina, we're gonna use the Bernina stitch regulator. This is a free motion attachment. Now, if you're just using another machine, you can just use a hopping foot as well. There's more than one way to skin a cat when you're trying to demonstrate things. So feel free to just use a free motion foot or a spring-loaded hopping foot to accomplish your demo. In some cases, if you need to go dual purpose, you might even just use your embroidery foot that you use for your hoop embroidery demo to do your free motion demo. With Bernina, we want to go ahead and sell the stitch regulator, because this is like basically training wheels for free motion sewing. What this does, this attachment here, this is a high-speed camera inside of a little package here. It has a little printed circuit board in here, and this camera takes thousands of pictures a second of the fabric while shooting an infrared light onto it. As the light changes because of the movement, it changes the speed of the machine through where it's plugged into the back of the machine. So this attachment helps regulate the speed of the machine with your movement, so you don't have to think about how hard to push the foot pedal. You can just move the fabric and focus on the fabric movements. So it's a really nice attachment for quilters, and it has some different options on how to adjust it. And don't worry about going into that with the person you're demonstrating it to. Just let them know that we give classes on how to use this attachment and how to adjust it the right way, and we'll show them how. What matters is that we're gonna go ahead and do this demo, okay? Always make sure when you do your free motion demo, you have a nice surface to lay the fabric out on, okay? You need it to be flat and easy to move around. You're either gonna grab the sides of your quilt sandwich, or you're gonna push down and move it around. I like to grab the sides and control it and move it around. Remember, we did about a 12 by 12 or a 24 by 24. You don't want too big of a quilt sandwich that's gonna be draping and hard to use. This is a demonstration. You want it to look really good, okay? And you don't want it to be so small that you can only do a little bit. We want enough that we can go ahead and do this and maybe leave some room for the customer to also try it out, okay? We want them to try the machine out. We want them to experience the machine. So we're gonna go up and start in the corner. and we're going to needle down, and then we're going to needle up, and we can see our little bobbin tail popping up. So we're going to go ahead and grab onto that bobbin tail. Now we can go ahead and we can tie off. I'm just going to do 3 stitches, 2 of them back and forth, leaving the needle down. I'm going to grab my 2 tails at the top, get the scissors really close to the needle and cut those tails with the needle down. So now we're ready to rock and roll. And I'll give you another tip with showing the BSR. Turn the sound off. There's a button that looks like a speaker that you can press on the front of the machine. Up here, looks like a little speaker. I'm going to press it so it's engaged. What that does is it's a warning that beeps at the customer when they move too fast. As fast as the machine is, you can still move fabric way faster than what the machine can actually do and run. And it will actually warn you, it'll beep at you if you're moving too fast. So what we want to do is turn that off because it sounds like a warning, it sounds like a problem, and the customer will become distressed. And we don't want that, we're just doing a demonstration. So I'm going to turn the sound off so there's no beeping sounds that are warning or making it seem difficult. We want it to really be a fun thing, a nice thing for them to experience. And we can adjust our stitches per inch for how close these stitches are by using our length adjustment with the Bernina stitch regulator. If you're doing a free motion demo, what you want to do is make really long stitches or run the machine slower when you're making bigger movements so the stitches are more defined. So you can see the stitches are more defined here. We're making these big long movements. You don't want to make little movements with a really long stitch length, or else what happens, there's going to be a problem. You're going to have little angles and points where there should be contour. If you're going to do micro stippling or really small stitches, you need to turn that stitch length down so you have more stitches per inch in a smaller area. So your small contours or your little turns, your curves, they're really going to show a lot more. Okay? Your little squiggles show a lot more instead of being like pointy and pointed. All right? But if you're making these big long movements, you're going to go ahead and you're going to turn the stitch length up for those so that way you show the stitching more. Okay? And see, we've matched our colors on top and bottom. So we've got a nice contrast. The bottom looks just like the top. So it's really important to match your threads for that reason. And then go ahead and you're going to free motion more towards the middle of the fabric. Making sure everything's perfect and set up just like this, and there's some nice room right here. I'm going to invite the customer to go ahead and free motion. All I'm going to do is back my chair up, and then I'm going to present the foot pedal. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to point where the foot pedal is and show them where the foot pedal is, and then point the chair towards them and just say, okay, now you're going to go ahead and try it out. Go ahead, try it out.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. So when you're setting up your embroidery demos, you're going to go ahead and take all of the hoops that go with the machine and hoop them all with fabric. The largest hoop is going to be hooped up with fabric and used to run on a daily basis or to impress people. The other hoops will also be hooped with fabric, so while you're demonstrating the machine, you can go ahead and switch over to a whole new blank embroidery to show customers specific embroidery techniques or the way certain patterns look that they might want to see. It's just good to hoop all of the hoops with fabric and then go ahead and take your old ones and recycle those, put them out for display, or throw them away if they're not really that presentable. So we're gonna go ahead and take some stabilizer, and we're gonna get some of this, and we're gonna make sure it's about roughly the size of the hoop that we wanna use, okay? So make sure you've got some open stabilizer to show off in the classroom, preferably something that we sell so you can talk about it in the classroom. So you'll see that this hoop here has an insert on the inside. We're gonna loosen it up to take that out. And then we're gonna set our stabilizer down in here. So this is actually a fusible stabilizer. The shiny side is the fusible. And so if you have the time and you're setting up your demos, what's really good to do is to go ahead and actually iron your fabric onto your fusible stabilizer, because it's actually gonna be a lot more robust and it's gonna be on there a lot better, okay? So make sure you go ahead and do that. I'll show you if you're in a pinch, you need to put it together, how to do that. So we're gonna take our fabric and make sure, I'm gonna use black fabric. The concept here is the same for demonstration, where we have a solid color with a contrasting thread for your demo, so everything really shows off. It's very obvious, okay? So we're gonna take this here, and we're gonna go ahead. Cut the fabric and then rip down the seam. So it's all a nice straight shot. Then we're gonna go ahead and make our square. Okay. So now we have about the size we need for a demo. Okay. So I'm not gonna worry about fusing this for now. I'm just gonna hoop it to show you guys. Normally though, we're gonna wanna go ahead and iron this stabilizer on, okay? Because that's gonna actually make it a lot more clean. It's gonna make our demo a lot better if it's a fusible stabilizer. Another thing you can do for your demos to make sure that the fabric is on the stabilizer is if you have open 505, same thing like with the quilt batting. You can go ahead and spray based or tack down your fabric onto the demo with your spray based. All right. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a demo. We're going to set it in place. Okay. Just like this. And I'm going to show you once we have it in here, we're going to trim it. So the hoop has these little Teflon inserts on either side. And most hoops have a top and bottom with a little arrow that lines up with another arrow on the hoop. Our other arrow is over here on the ratchet end. So I'm going to take this arrow and face it towards this one on the ratchet end over here. And then we'll put our insert on. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this down and hoop the fabric. Okay, it's not a perfect hooping job. You know, a lot of professional embroiderers are going to want things to be very taut, you know, no wrinkles. But remember, you know, we're just demonstrating this stuff. So we need our samples ready to go. And then this one has a ratchet, so I crank that ratchet to tighten everything up. Okay, so it's all tight, it's ready to rock and roll. So that's good. We can pull the fabric to pull it taut. You know, make sure we have everything nice and clean so there's no wrinkles as much as we can help, you know, for demonstration purposes, okay? So we've got one going, and then I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna trim off edge of the fabric there. And then we'll go ahead and trim off edge of the fabric here. So we've got a demo ready. And then we're going to go ahead and do our others. Okay. It's pretty quick. And so depending on how many hoops the machine comes with, you want to go ahead and just take all of those hoops that are available that we have out to show the customers all the hoops that the machine comes with. And we're going to go ahead and hoop all of them with fabric so they're all demo ready, so we don't miss any opportunities to show off the embroidery. Okay, now we're going to go ahead. All right, so now we're going to put this in here. This has a screw on the side, a tensioning screw. And what you want to do with tensioning screws is loosen them so you have a bunch of play. Set the fabric in. Make sure you line the arrows up. There's an arrow on the inside of the hoop here, so make sure they're going to line up. And then go ahead and press down. And you should have enough to press down all the way. If you don't, you're going to go ahead and loosen that screw while you're pushing down, and then it'll fall into place while you're hooping. And you get a nice clean hoop. There's not a lot of. You might have to move the hoop off the edge of the table so you can get to the screw to tighten it back up. Okay, and you're only tightening it by hand, until it's really tight. So now we have another demo ready. Okay, so we go ahead and repeat that, like for this hoop right here. And we're gonna go ahead and make another embroidery demo, and we want all the hoops ready to go with a solid color, and we're gonna use a contrasting thread, all right? Okay, so we've got our fabric hoop, and we wanna use the biggest hoop possible when we're running demos in the store to impress people so it gets their attention, okay? Now, this is contrary to what most embroiderers say, but what we actually want to do when we're demonstrating to make our stitches look really nice is we're actually going to match the top and bottom embroidery thread for embroidery. What the normal embroiderer will do, or the home embroiderer, or the professional, they'll put bobbin fill inside of the bobbin and then their top thread on top. We're actually going to go ahead and match the threads so that we have a really nice consistent look on top and bottom for embroidery, okay? So this is a thread that's also going to pop. It's really going to show the color. So you always want a solid color with something that contrasts for your embroidery demos, so you can really see the stitching. So we're going to go ahead and plug the bobbin in. Thread our bobbin up. And then we're going to go ahead and switch over to embroidery mode. So, see the screen? So basically, when you do embroidery demos, if you have the customer with you, a really fast demo you can do is very simply bringing a pattern into the screen so we can see it. With the Bernina machine and some other types of machines like Genomes, even the baby locks and things like that, you can actually go in and select your hoop, which hoop you're going to work with, so you can actually see what the design is going to look like in the screen, okay? So we actually can demo the design. Okay, so if I had the customer with me, I would just go ahead and show them in the options how I can go ahead and rotate the design so we can see the design rotating. I would go ahead and show them how we can size the design. We can make it bigger, and we can also make it a lot smaller. That's a demo. It might seem like it's really simple, but it's really powerful because some machines can't do that. So that's actually a demo for embroidery machines. Sizing, rotating. Then what I'm going to go ahead and do, in my editing screen, I'll just hit the copy button, And we'll use our touchscreen to drag and drop different designs to make a fun array of designs. And so the machine just places them, and then we can even add another design. And this is also a demo. Combining designs is something that not every model does. Okay, so being able to combine designs is going to help show that the machine is multifunction. And we'll put a centerpiece in there. Okay, I'll actually size it. Remember, we want large designs. We want to show off what the machine can do. And that's with a big embroidery field. Because the module is bigger, the embroidery module is bigger, we have this bigger space that it can handle. And it can embroider these bigger spaces. And we want the customer to be aware of that, okay, when they buy a bigger machine. All right. And so we'll go ahead and thread it up. Now, ideally, we're with the customer, we're already threaded and ready to go. Or we've switched over and we are just sewing maybe, and we're switching over. But again, even when you're doing free motion demos, sewing demos, and these embroidery demos, you actually want your thread on the top and bottom to match, because you have to switch back and forth many times with a combo machine like this. So you do want your threads to match on top and bottom, because you may be going from a sewing demo to an embroidery demo, or back from embroidery to sewing. So you need to make sure that your colors match so you get a really good presentation no matter what. Okay? And so now the machine's going to take us through some prompts. It's going to calibrate. Okay, so we picked a bigger pattern that fills up this whole space here. This is a 40-minute pattern normally at full speed. So we're going to switch over to sewing mode. And I'm going to turn the speed governor down all the way. And so normally when the customer's not with us in the store, but we want to run the machine to get attention, we're going to go ahead and embroider at the slowest possible speed. Okay, some machines we turn that setting down in the settings, or some like this Bernina have a governor on the front, and we can adjust the speed with the governor. This is an 822-minute pattern at the slowest possible speed. So basically this is over 10 hours of embroidery, which is great for like in the store. And this machine will actually remember embroidery patterns when we turn it off, so that's even helpful, like if at the end of the day we want to turn the machine off and then go ahead and resume the pattern. Or if you changed a pattern, you want to kind of make a note of how big the pattern is and the changes you made to it, so maybe you can fire it up later if you're not dealing with a machine that kind of has these capabilities. Okay? If you're with the customer and you're demonstrating, we want to demonstrate embroidery at full speed. And we want to make sure everything's set up the right way, we've stabilized everything the right way, we've threaded the machine the right way, and we're running the machine at full speed. Okay? It's more impressive to run the machine at full speed. So that's what we want to accomplish. You'll see patterns like this that have a big, large satin stitch slow down so that they can accommodate that big, long stitch and moving the field back and forth as they sew. But we can see the color contrast with the thread and how nice this pattern is. So we'll go ahead and sew this. Stop it. Okay, so as you do the demos and as you show the machinery off, people are going to get interested, and so that's how you increase sales like exponentially and get a lot more sales in the pipeline, and also create leads, creating people that are interested, but maybe you don't close them right away, and then you just keep track of them, send them emails, call them, follow up with them, give them more information, because you've created the interest and they want to buy, but maybe they're not closing. Doing the demos creates leads, it creates opportunities to close, so you have to know how to handle those situations. And there's a whole other set of training and everything that we offer through the training program at Carter University. Through closing, you want to know what the closes are. the situations to use those closes in, so you're saying the right things at the right time. If you use the wrong closes at the wrong time, they don't work properly. So you want to know what to say in the right situations and everything when you're in those situations. So basically, when you're trial closing throughout your demo, you're testing to see what kind of prospect you're dealing with, and if you can, you're going to be able to move forward with negotiations. So with high-end equipment and selling high-end, and in most retail situations, negotiations are not uncommon. Selling involves negotiations 90% of the time. The majority of the time, selling involves negotiations. And with sewing machinery, it definitely involves negotiations because there's so many machines in the marketplace. Most of the time, people are trading. Most of the time, they're looking at other options. And there's a lot of times where maybe we have to be competitive and things like that. So we have to be prepared to negotiate. What that means is that we always let people know that we're open to negotiations if we're trial closing and they start asking buying questions. You always want to give the full price of a machine first. You never want to try to just lead with a discounted price or lead with a discount, because you're actually underselling the product. You want to continue to build value and get to the close and then start negotiating before you start giving discounts and price decreases, basically. So a good trial close for sewing machines is, do you think that this would be a feature you would like a lot? How do you like when they try out the machine? How do you like your new machine? How do you enjoy this feature? Do you enjoy this attachment? Check out this sample when you do a demo. Do you think that's impressive? Isn't that nice? And they'll agree with you and say yes. Isn't that nice? Is a great way to follow up your demos every time. It's a trial close. How would you like this color? Do you think that this would match your cabinet? That sort of thing. So we're asking them questions to see if they're interested in the machine. They say, do you think that you would upgrade your machine after doing the demo? Is a good trial close. How do you feel about upgrading your machine? And so once you're trial closing, if they like those, if you get good positive answers and they like the demos and they're kind of agreeing with you, you're in a good situation to continue building value. You can do things like a service walk. You can show them around the shop and let them know we're going to service them. Make sure the tech room's in good shape if you're going to do the service walk, so they can see that we're here to support them. And then go ahead and start letting them know what the full price of the machine is. Always start out with the full price of the machine. It's good to start out with the full price of the machine because you're letting them know the full value. And it actually builds value in a machine to let them know this is a $15,000 machine, this is a $12,000 machine. You're letting them know the full value of the machine. And they understand, oh, this is a really good machine. If you just tell them the discounted price of the machine, that's the value they're going to start out with and that they think the machine is. So if you say, oh, this machine is on sale right now for $9,000, then they're just going to assume that $9,000 is the normal going price of the machine. If you show them the price and say the MSRP is $12,500, that's a lot better for the negotiations, and in building value in the machine, it's going to make them feel better about the value of the machine when they buy it than if you just tell them a sale price. So when you're going to price point, always tell people that you will show them the price. Always show them the price. And this means one of a couple different things. It means you're going to show them the price with an MSRP price book. That's a manufacturer price book that has the MSRP prices in it. If you don't have that available, you're going to go ahead and use the price tag by the machine that we've put together with a bundle of included supplies, maybe classes, things like that. It shows the full price and show them the full price so they can see it and read it, and then show them the discounted price, and then talk about trade-ins, maybe buying a floor model at a discount and work off of that. Okay? Now, if you don't have a price tag, you don't have an MSRP book, you're still going to show them the price. The way you're going to do it is with a legal pad or a notepad. You're going to go get the notepad and you're going to physically write it down. Even though it seems redundant or it seems like you're telling them that already and now you're just writing it down, people believe what they see and not what they hear. So you need to show them the full price. Show them the full price of the machine. Write it down. Say, this is the full price of the machine. And then go ahead and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and give you this much for a trade-in. If you're unsure about trade-in evaluations and they're trading a machine, ask your boss, use the organizational chart and look for people on the organizational chart that say they can do trade-in evaluations if you're not already ready to do that. Don't make promises you can't fulfill on, and tell people that you can give a way high trade-in value when you really don't know what you're talking about. You should just ask your manager. Just let them know, hey, I'm going to find out, and make some phone calls, do some research, figure it out. What you can do for a trade-in appraisal when you're appraising the trade-in. And it's always good to appraise the trade-in when you're already on the right product, okay? Make sure you're on the right product and then appraise the trade-in. Don't appraise the trade-in, okay, on the high end and then move into the product. We do trade-in appraisals on repair check-ins. Those are low street value trade-in appraisals that are lower appraisals. When it actually comes time to transact and close, we're gonna go ahead and use eBay, and we're gonna look at what stuff sells for on eBay as an average value, and then also use the machine that we're selling and the margins there to figure out the best trade-in for the customer and for us. So make sure you get some experience with trade-in evaluations before you start throwing numbers out there. Ask your boss and figure that out. Just get the full price, look for trade-in evaluations, figure out what kind of sales we have going on. There's a price folder in the Google Drive that's going to have the specials and it has some of the discounts in there, and you can go ahead and use the pricing folder to figure out what kind of specials are going on as well, okay? And just ask more experienced staff and that sort of thing. Once you start writing those numbers down for the customer, okay, once you have the MSRP, you have the price tag, you're going to write the numbers down for the customer no matter what, so you have the full price, what the sale price is, maybe some kind of discount on the floor model or something like that. Or you're just going to go ahead and write down the full price if they're ready to buy and they don't have a trade-in, then you can sell at full price, which is possible. If you build enough value, you do a good enough job building the value of the machine, here's the price, and you build it up to the value, maybe even higher, you really make them like the machine a lot and they're just ready to buy one, great. Let's go ahead and ask for the sale. Once you've done the appraisal, you've written up the deal, it's time to ask for the sale. Or they're just telling you they're ready to buy sometimes because you've done such a good job, they're going to buy sticker price, or they're doing a discount, they've negotiated, whatever, we're good to go. Always make sure to transact. It's time to transact. If you don't know how to run financing, get help doing the financing. Make sure it happens. If you don't know how to run the transaction in the point of sale system, make sure you get help to do that. Otherwise, if you do know that stuff, you definitely need to transact as soon as possible. Do not let customers walk out the door or walk on you with the promise that they will come back to buy, because you just cut your chances in half, at least. Probably more in a lot of cases statistically. Once they walk out the door, they're probably not coming back to buy. And they've already made a commitment to buy, and you didn't transact, and you've lost your deal. When it's time to close, you need to go ahead and look at them and say, okay, are we ready to do this today? Can we go ahead and ring that up for you? Would you like to pay with a check, a credit card? How can we ring this up today? Can we go ahead and run the financing paperwork? Can I go ahead and pull your machine out? I'm going to go get your machine for you. We're going to go ahead and run your credit card. There's a lot of ways to ask for the sale and close once you're done with negotiations or they've said they want to buy, and you need to go ahead and transact. Okay, so make sure you get the transaction and make sure you close when it's time to close. As you do the demos and people get interested, it's okay to ask for the sale early with trial closes, and it's okay to go ahead and ask for the sale as you get emotional reactions from the customer that are positive, where they're smiling and laughing. You say, okay, would you like to take one home today? And then see what they say, if they say yes or no. If they say no, it actually means you need to do more demonstrations. It doesn't mean that they're not going to buy sometimes. If they say, maybe not yet, or I'm thinking about it, that means they still maybe will buy. So go back to your demo and do more demoing, okay? That builds more value, all right? So when you ask for the sale, would you like to take one home today, or would you like to take this floor model maybe, or I have a brand new in the box for you, would you like to take that one? Wait for them to speak first. Never keep talking. The first person to talk gets to keep the machine, okay? So just remember that. All right, so do the demos, trial close, give the full price. Don't give just the discount price. Always show the full price of the machine first, and then let them know. We can do trade-in. If they say that's too expensive, well, we do financing. We can break that up. People need to know that we work with them to try to help them get into a machine. It's no problem. All right, thanks.